So, hello and welcome to the New Gig Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Hodgson. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by marketing specialist Brian Honigman. How you doing, Brian?
Hi, Glenn. How are you? I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, Brian, let's go through a little bit in terms of your personal journey that you've had so far, but also a little bit about your background and tell the viewers and listeners about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a career freelancer, marketing consultant, first and foremost. So 16 years of my career, I've been focused in on marketing, heavy focus on developing marketing strategy for different companies and individuals. A lot of focus in the categories of content marketing, social brand, and then, with marketing, you kind of spill out into a couple other subcategories from there, but that's been the main focus. And for 12 of those years, I've been a freelancer. I worked previously at some startups. I worked at an agency doing marketing and then brand side doing marketing, really getting that lovely 360 view of how marketing works at different types of companies, companies at different scales, companies with different strengths and weaknesses, and was able to luckily parlay that into self employment. And I've been doing that for 12 years now, offering a variety of services from consulting, teaching, training, and that's all around marketing strategy, helping companies drive business outcomes from marketing, and then also career development. And sometimes that intersects where uh, I'm helping marketers navigate their own careers. How do they stay relevant? How do they design a career that they love? That's something that I've been really privileged and pride myself on, is that I've been able to uh, create a career for myself that is on my terms for the most part. I have some level of perceived control. I still have many smaller bosses now as opposed to one boss. So yeah, that kind of is my background, and how I kind of got to where I am today. And it's basically been being really intentional about where is there demand for um, solving problems for companies, and what are painkillers, as many people describe it, as like solutions I can provide
Mm.
to from the outside, help them solve those problems from a marketing standpoint, from a career advancement standpoint. And the big thing I'm communicating about a lot these days is, how do you have longevity in your career as a freelancer, as a self-employed professional? There's a lot of endless advice out there on how do you start in freelancing, how do you
Mm.
get things kicked off, and often freelancing is looked at as a stopgap in between some full-time roles, and that's fine, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be a short-term venture.
Yeah.
I'd argue that freelancing is just as viable of a career path from a full-time role to having a full traditional business as an entrepreneur, whether that's opening a chain of Mexican restaurants or launching a software startup. Then there's self-employment. You're either a solopreneur or working with a team of other folks. It's just as viable as a career path with a lot of longevity with the right approach in mind. So that's kind of stuff that's on top of mind for me today, given that's kind of
Absolutely.
where I'm at.
Absolutely. Well, a lot to unpack there as well, I think, and very interesting at the same time, Brian, because you've been a freelancer before it was trendy to be a freelancer, before COVID hit and sort of people started thinking about these things. So you've had a sort of a lot of skin in the game for a long time. And what's the sort of the biggest changes you've seen? Is it kind of people get the whole freelance lifestyle or work style, if you want to call it that, these days more than maybe a decade ago, or how's things been evolving?
Spot on. COVID was certainly this interesting intersection point of awareness around a couple things like remote work. Remote work
Yeah.
was very viable and an option before, but never at such scale across the world because companies were forced to. And a lot of companies were like, remote work, we can't, control or see what our folks are doing. So,
Yeah.
anyways, the big trends that I've seen emerge from that is kind of one, there's a lot more opportunity for freelancers and infrastructure for freelancers, both from options to find opportunities and
Mm.
to structure work in different formats. Also, companies looking for outside contributors and support. And with the greater opportunities out there, and we can talk about that, there's been a lot more respect
Yeah.
and again, like support for freelancers because there's a lot of myths that, kind of one stereotype around freelancing is that it's just you're just outsourcing your grunt work. It's low paid, low quality, and that's a stereotype. Sure,
Yeah.
there's always going to be some level of work in the freelance category that is repetitive, um, doesn't require a lot of training or effort. There's a percentage of the work in freelance that you can certainly outsource to folks earlier in their careers to knock it out for you. But there was a perception that that was a majority of freelance work, and that's definitely not the case. So, because there's more opportunities for freelancers and companies are more open to it, the whole self-employment track has gained a lot more respect in,
Mm.
as you said, like over this last decade, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, it just seems to be something that seems to be, a realistic and a viable option. It's not something that's kind of a niche, a little bit bizarre. And as you said yourself, it's kind of that element. There's more respect put around it. It's no longer just a case of, well, when are you going to get a real job? It's seen as something realistic and a viable option for an increasing percentage of the population. And I think at the sort of different ends, whether it's kind of the millennials and Gen Z, older workers, but also across sectors as well. It's not knowledge workers, but it's also other elements of the society and the economy who are also seeing this as like a something that is realistic and viable in a very different terms than it was previously.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of just across sectors, there are more platforms for freelancers or marketplaces for freelancers across different industries to find work than ever
Yeah,
before. There's 800 plus across sectors where you can land editing work, you can find work as a developer, you can find work consulting on marketing. And that's just like one avenue for finding those opportunities and finding companies that are bought in
yeah,
and leverage these platforms as a sense of um, like credibility in some cases.
mm,
Because one of the pushbacks sometimes to freelancers in the past, and this still comes up now and again, is that are you who you say you are? Do you have the credentials and the background? And are you a citizen of this country? If I'm hiring folks in this particular region and I need to have all those
mm,
details aligned, these like third party platforms have been helpful for that. So like that's one of the ways in which this has just become more viable for all parties. And I'm not saying that's the only route. I actually don't think freelancers should only be on those marketplaces because they are a middleman. They take
yeah,
part of the cut. You don't own the relationship. But that's kind of one way companies from Apple to Google to these big players have
yeah,
been way more willing to extend their workforce to this kind of external talent pool, this external cloud of talent. So it's
yeah.
been interesting.
And how would you say this has moved out as well in terms of your own way of finding work, projects, activities? Is it word of mouth? Is it your own personal ecosystem and network, or is it using these sort of digital platforms? What's the kind of split that you kind of find yourself, Brian?
I have a mix, and I really recommend that for most folks. And it's going to be a different mix at the beginning stages of freelance to the
Yeah,
next as you evolve. But for me, it's being known for my expertise, which didn't just I didn't just wake up and born to be known for marketing and career support.
yeah,
It's putting your ideas out there in public forums on a consistent basis, which I've been doing for years and years and years prior to
yeah,
going freelance, talking about marketing in industry publications, going on podcasts, producing courses, being active on social media, and
yeah,
showing versus telling. And that
yeah.
leads to inbound opportunities. And
Yes.
then, of course, there are digital platforms I've used to varying degrees at different stages of my freelance trajectory. And those are really great for the foundational years of like getting your ducks in a row financially and getting,
Yeah, yeah,
supporting yourself because There are active companies hiring now for your skills right here and there. You don't have to become known or hunt for stuff in the same way. And then I would say uh, pitching to different organizations because I'm a big proponent of you want a lot of your work to come inbound from being known, from referrals
Yeah.
from past clients that are satisfied. But there's, from my understanding, from my experience in working with other freelancers in this capacity, there's a ceiling to that. You do have to put yourself out there in outbound ways, like going to events, pitching clients directly, asking, going beyond your past client, just casually referring you and reaching out to your clients and saying, hey, I'm offering X, Y, and Z. Do you know any colleagues in your network that you could refer me to? That'd be
Yeah.
really appreciated. And being a little more direct and pushing. So that's been my mix is, inbound through sharing expertise publicly, through outbound, through relying on third party platforms that have job listings, that have project listings out there. And that mix has been really
Yeah.
what's helped me sustain it for the long term. And I recommend thinking about it in that way is that
Mm.
you can't rely on any one source of leads or income as a freelancer because pretty quickly then that just becomes a full-time job. And we are not
Yes.
we are not anti full-time jobs. I think all three paths that I called out are all viable. What I don't like about a full-time role is that if you get laid off or fired or things don't work out, then all your income goes poof. And
Yes.
a pro of freelancing, from my viewpoint, is that you should ideally have multiple sources of revenue, multiple
Mm.
ways clients are finding you to protect yourself and have that career security and longevity.
Mm, absolutely. And I think this is something that we see more and more today, the whole idea of a portfolio career. In the
Yes.
same way that you wouldn't just buy Apple stock and nothing else, you have to have a balanced portfolio. Why people don't look at that in terms of their career, I still think it's a little bit strange. I think it's maybe because for decades, since almost probably since the Industrial Revolution, the whole idea of safety and security was a full-time 9 to 5 employment. But we just see that where the world's working as well. Some of the biggest names in the corporate world laying off thousands and thousands of people across sectors. So the whole idea of safety and security with one job selling hours to one employer, surely that myth has been well and truly busted these days, Brian.
100%. And you can't blame the individual, the person in the role for feeling this way because in past generations, even, I'm 37, I'm a square in the millennial generation.
Yeah,
My parents were at roles for 20 plus years. And we were
right.
taught this narrative of you do your work, you're loyal, you'll be promoted and be supported by the company. And that is just not the reality and has not been for at least 2 decades
Yeah,
where organizations are not as loyal. The economy is fluctuating in a variety of unpredictable ways. The impact of technology from AI to, um, or greater trends around globalization. There's just not that same kind of safety net that was perceived originally.
yeah,
And it's even more so the case today. Like the unemployment rate in the US is 4.3%. That
yeah.
is the highest it's been since 2021, right after the pandemic, right?
Mm,
And who's most affected by this um, lack of security and long-term viability in a full-time role right now in this moment? And for this is kind of newer. It's knowledge workers. You had already
yeah,
mentioned like knowledge workers, college graduates, folks that have felt, again, perceived safety, have felt a little bit more protected because of their level of education, their deep immersion in a particular path,
yeah.
are the ones that are affected by these shifts, firsthand right now in the market. And that's been a really interesting shift to see.
Mm. Yeah, no, exactly. And also, I think it's interesting from your perspective, looking from sort of the US outwards, they always say that what the US has for breakfast and throws away, that maybe sort of UK and Northern Europe will have for lunch, and then the rest of the world will have for dinner. So
Oh
you're
my
very much
gosh.
at sort of the leading arc of a lot of trends. And I think in terms of the work force labor market differences. I think you're sort of seeing this something that's going to come down the pipe over time in other geographies as well. So it'd be good to have your sort of a little bit more on your overview of how the U.S. labor market is looking. And you say about sort of the unemployment rates, and is it going to be that more and more people will be looking at a kind of portfolio career freelancing as the way to go increasingly as time goes on?
Absolutely. I think the time for freelancing and investing in your own portfolio career and your own career security is now. There's going to be
Yeah.
like two waves from my viewpoint, in that there's folks that are going to really intentionally get into this path in the next 5 to 10 years period, and then there's going to be folks that are more so forced into it due to
Mm,
a lack of career options. And that is not the ideal state to go into any direction professionally. I don't think freelancing is enjoyable if you feel like it is your only option. The
right.
intentionality makes such a difference.
Mm,
So why freelancing now? The perception that full-time roles were safe is no longer there, and the knowledge workers getting laid off at a really consistent clip.
yeah.
Um, the openness from organizations to hire outsourced talent is there. And it's an opportunity to kind of, you mentioned it, it's like not giving all of your hours to one source, breaking
Mm,
up your hours to three companies that make up your 40-hour, 30-hour work week, so
yeah.
that you are um, in line with where the market is shifting. It requires not only your deep immersion in your function, whether you're in PR,
Mm,
HR, whatever, but then also like thinking about this as a business, and how do you structure it in a way that um, is feasible for you and appealing to these companies, and of course like enjoyable. Some of this should actually drive you in some capacity. Um, Organizations, there was a study in the Harvard Business Review that found that organizations that leverage external talent are able to get work done like 4 to 5 times faster with outsourced talent, and
yeah.
do it more efficiently and cheaply, 8 to 10 times the rate of
Wow.
working just internally. Now, and I just a quick tangent here. I don't mean cheaply in that we should be taking much lower rates and considering ourselves as really expendable resources, but more cost effective for companies hiring these folks externally, because they're not hiring someone for the foreseeable future with a full compensation package. They are taking their salary and having it into a chunk, like a fee for 3 months, right? You're there for a short interval, a short stint, and that is a
Yeah.
lot more. And you come in with that specialization that doesn't require training from the company. You come in as the expert on X, Y, and Z, provide that support right then and there, so you're able to more quickly address the problems.
Yeah. No,
That that
absolutely.
that really is this big opportunity right now for professionals to um, start experimenting around
Mm,
freelancing. You can test it on the side. I'm not obsessed with side hustle, the terminology, but
right.
doing it on the side as a little bit of a lower risk test to get your sea
Yeah.
legs, get
Yeah.
acclimated, because there's this openness from organizations, and because there's a lot of opportunity right now to get ahead of this shift. So
Mm.
that's what I want folks to be thinking about, is like, how can I start testing this in ways that feel a little less risky, while I'm still employed, while I still have options on the table. So just so you're protecting yourself for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that kind of the fact that you have knowledge, skills, and expertise to sell to the market as well. And I guess there's a certain element of, we as individuals need to take our own careers, our own knowledge into our own hands and be responsible for the reskilling and upskilling that is necessary to be valuable for the market and for companies and organizations within that.
Absolutely. It's kind of similar to, I feel like in the last 5 years in full-time positions, everybody is better understanding that you have to advocate for your own advancement in the
Yeah.
workplace. You have to advocate for your own promotion and showcase what you're contributing to the organization, not just doing great work, but you have to present it.
Yes.
Similar thinking here is that you have to take control of the knowledge, expertise, skills you offer and have,
Yeah.
created, in-depth. You've built out your own competency, you've driven results
Mm.
for it. Now you have to go and sell that and package it in the market. And as you called out, there is such a need for um, continuing education in ourselves as professionals. But
Yeah.
every organization right now, with all the different technological shifts, especially around AI, I roll my eyes because we're just like AI, AI, AI
Yeah.
constantly. But there's such a need for kind of the intersection of how does this
Yeah.
new technology, AI or otherwise, complement the skill set you already have, and how can you provide that to companies? And like right now, this is like the easiest way to dive in. It's like, okay, so I'm an HR professional, I'm a marketer, I've done PR, I do internal comms. How does that apply to AI, and how can I help the organization start implementing that in a meaningful way, not just layering on tech or new tools or expanding their toolkit for no reason, but pinpointing ways in which you could be a painkiller for them, right? You are
Yeah.
addressing a problem they're up against, and you can help them use this technology to solve for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I like that sort of thinking that whether you're a freelancer or within a company or an organization, almost think of yourself as a company of one. Have this freelance mentality, which will help you as well to actually know what you're doing and also be able to show it internally and externally in terms of the competencies you have. And I think this is probably a great mindset for anyone who is in a company outside wanting to sort of learn and earn at the same time. So it's a kind of a mentality which needs to be probably adopted and learned in some cases as well.
Absolutely. It's a shift. It's a definitely a mindset shift. You nailed it on the head there. Like we have to think outside of the boxes in which we've been traditionally taught about what employment is, right? And say, okay, I have these three buckets of skills. What are the
Mm,
ways in which I can package them up and sell them? And
yes.
what are the outcomes that these buckets provide to an individual, to a company? So I can be really clear as to why they'd want to collaborate with me.
Mm,
Um, we have to think about, okay, so it's a 40-hour work week traditionally. Why is that the case? Can't you sit down and provide value for 25 hours a week, 35
right.
hours a week?
Yeah.
And recognizing that we have to be aware of the rules of the workforce, and understand them as kind of best practices. And then when you're kind of shifting your approach to think more like a freelancer, think like an entrepreneur at a company before you
Right.
take the leap, it's like, what are the rules and how can I bend or break them to help me better succeed in my own career, so that I have
Yeah.
fulfillment, that I'm being compensated and I'm financially secure, and I'm working on things where there's demand for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we're the dreaded term AI, but at the same time, I mean, there is more technology out there. There's more technology available to us in our roles and our work positions as well. And so, kind of, how have you utilized this? How has it impacted your work, either in terms of how you use it for your skills, but also interacting with companies, organizations, and individuals who have the sort of the utilizing technology as well. How are you doing that on a day-to-day basis, Brian?
Yeah, in a variety of ways. One way is saving me time on
Yeah,
repetitive processes. I think that's
right.
straightforward for anybody, in the sense of like doing research on an audience, on the customer I'm trying to speak to in an article, or the client I'm trying to prepare this proposal for. The research phase of that process, because everything you do as a marketer and really working in business in any capacity, you need to personalize to who you're speaking with or
Yeah,
presenting
yeah, yeah.
to. So that
Yeah.
part has gotten a lot more lean. Um, Other ways is better empowering the clients I support, right? So helping marketing teams add on these tools, add on these platforms. Try not to think of them as just as a tool, but as a mindset shift of like, how can I manage these processes, these workflows more leanly as a
Yeah.
marketer? Um, One way that's been quite helpful for the coaching clients I work with, I coach freelancers and marketing leaders. And prior to kicking off a coaching engagement, I would, traditionally send them assessments,
Yeah.
ask them to fill out this questionnaire, and I still do that in conjunction with, can you interact with this AI chat I've developed so that I can
Yeah.
get to the nitty gritty of where you are, what are your current career strengths, where are the gaps, so that we're saving time on that initial first kickoff call to really
Yes.
get to the crux of the issue, the area that we should really focus on.
Mm.
And sometimes it's empowering their work that they're doing with when I'm not there. So if I'm helping somebody um, in getting their next role, getting their next position, and they need to practice their interview, how they're interviewing. So we'll do
Yeah.
that together. But then there's lots of great tools out there where you can role play and on
Yeah.
your own get real time feedback. I can never be there enough for somebody as a coach. Like there's just not enough hours in the day. But
Yes.
you could use there's this tool, yodel.ai, and it's specifically designed for role play, whether it's role playing with a mock interview or a sales call, whatever. And
Yeah.
the client that I'm here to support gets some guidance from me. We do the mock interview, and then they can go off on their own and continue to practice and grow that skill set. So those are
Yeah.
like positive ways that I've integrated it and how it shows up for clients. But then there's been negatives too. Like
Yeah.
I do a lot of build outs of strategy for like plans on, okay, where should we spend our money, time for the most impact and resources for the most impact as a marketing organization as part of this larger brand. And some of those strategy projects aren't coming in as they once did at the same level
I see.
because a lot of organizations from small to medium size, why do they want to hire outside talent when they can get some of this insight that was trapped inside these different subject matter experts, like a marketer like myself? I can
Mm.
use an AI tool to help me with that initial build out. And ultimately, it's for the best. Like it's democratizing access, in this case, to marketing, so that
Yeah.
more organizations can leverage it in a meaningful way. It's not to say it replaces the marketer on their team or the department at their organization, but something I've seen that's a negative, and tried my best, and I continue to do so in a variety of ways to make sure
Yeah.
that it's a value add and not a detriment to me and the clients I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is, using the technology that's there. I think ignoring it is absolutely impossible. We have to sort of use the technology or else the technology will use us. And I think it's sort of turning that round so we use it as a facilitator and makes what we do better, as well as actually frees up time for some of the more sort of creative, value-added angles of our work as well, Brian.
Absolutely. And like this isn't new in the sense of, yes, like AI's capabilities are new every day and it's become more mainstream. But there's always going to be some other shift. And
Yeah.
it's more so, as you've already kind of positioned it, it's like, how do you be adaptable with this in a way that serves you, empowers you for your own career longevity? That's the way
Yes.
I would think about it. What are ways to incorporate continuing education around AI or any subject that is relevant in your space into your daily and weekly workflow? I talk about passive and active learning. You need
Yeah.
to, on a continuing education basis, have passive learning opportunities like reading a newsletter about an important subject, listening to a great podcast like this one. And that's integrated kind of passively into your schedule. Where then there's also active learning where you're like, okay, now I'm going to interact with others in real time, whether
Yeah.
that's taking a workshop, taking a university course, going to coffee and spending 2 hours with other practitioners in our space, so that you're continuing to prioritize your own adaptability and um, learning these new things that are emerging, because there's just so much white space that you need to cover, and you don't need to
Yes.
be the expert on all of it, but how can you incorporate it and then make sure it applies to your work and that you have a perspective on it? Well, that's
Mm.
what is just all the more important every day, and this is top of mind always as a marketer. It's like, what is your POV? What is your perspective? What do you uniquely bring to the table? And sometimes that takes a while to formulate, and learning can help you get to there, help spur ideas of like, oh, this is where I fit in the overall mix.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's fantastic, and it's really great to have your insights, Brian, here as well, and see that you've lived it and breathed it over a number of years. And I think these things are absolutely crucial because the future is already here, and we need to adapt to it. We can't ignore it, so we need to sort of get on the train and make the most out of it now and into the future.
Absolutely. It it's okay if it's not exciting at times. It feels scary or more work to your overall workload, but don't let those feelings overpower it. You need to say, okay, where is the opportunity here? Where is the benefit to me?
Yeah,
It's okay to say, oh, this is a lot. I already have so much in my workday personally and professionally. But where can you integrate taking on something new into your schedule so that it isn't a burden, it's something exciting and value brings value to you in the end. And that's what I try to stress to people when they have these feelings. I've certainly had them of like, oh, am I outdated? Is this changing before
yeah.
before I can keep up? And it's okay to feel all the feelings, but you have to make incremental progress in order to move forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fantastic, Brian. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights here, and look forward to having you on again soon to talk about this ever evolving sector.
Thank you. I appreciate it.